Hello everyone, this is All India radio station Mokokchung at 100.9 MHz on FM band, and in the program Police and the Citizens Empowering in Unison, a program by the District Police Force Mokokchung in collaboration with All India Radio Mokokchung and the Mokokchung Premier TV behind the production. Today we are honored and privileged to have with us Dr. K.P.A. ILYAS, Assistant Director, National Police Academy, Hyderabad. He is a Nagaland cadre IPS officer of the 2011 batch and has served as the ASP PEC, then SP Crimes Police Headquarters, Kohima, Nagaland, and as the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Dimapur from 2015 to 18. Today, we shall be discussing with him the safety of children. But before that, sir, just to retrospect, you've been here in Nagaland, and I suppose it's about a couple of years since you left from here. So, anything in particular that you remember about Nagaland, sir?
As you know, I'm from Kerala, and Nagaland is a very far away place when I came there for first time. So I came with a lot of anxiety to a new place, but I was pleasantly surprised to see the quality of people over there.
Thank you.
What was striking was the egalitarian people had. They had absolutely no worry about the hierarchy. I would say almost other parts of the country is having that issue. Whenever you meet a new person, it will be trying to place where you are in that pecking order. Nothing like that. And people are exceptionally articulate. And it was quite a pleasant experience there. I was with my family in Fake, in Kohima, in Dimapur. So I felt at home.
Well, sir, as you say, you fell at home, and just to talk a little bit about Nagaland in the context, how would you compare Nagaland and Kerala for that matter? If there's anything good that you'd like to say in particular.
Yes, there is some striking similarities. The first is that how people look at the authority. The idea about power is the power to, not power over. If there is an authority, say, if I'm sitting as an SP, I'm there to exercise the power to help the people. The moment I try to lord over the people, they will protest. They will not agree to that. It's a beautiful thing. We are the people's servants, and people will make you feel that, both in Kerala and Nagaland. It's a great thing. It's a great tradition. And it takes a lot of strength for the society to have that. And the second thing is that people speak a lot. What we can say communicative rationality, even though there are no TV channels and all, but the colony youth, the student community, the people you meet, there is a lot of lively discussions going on. And when you speak more, as they say, it is more likely that more sensible things will emerge. So this is something I don't know, which is, I would say, the number one trait of Nagas. They are very articulate because they talk and they respect people who speak logic. Even in the middle of a huge controversy, if you are able to tell a better thing, they will listen to you.
That is nice to know, in fact, and I hope our listeners will take that as something that they can build on for with their own personalities and things like that. Now, sir, you have served as the Deputy Commissioner of Police out there in Dimapur. Sir, very frankly, have you faced any issues or problems, and such kind of problems or issues through which you feel Nagas should take a lesson for the future?
The biggest thing is that if you look at the Naga society, its social capital is immense. But a place like Dimapur is quite unsettling. Unless you take care to keep that community intact, even in that urban scenario, it will go for that anonymity issue, which is the bane of all the urban communities. If we really look at Kohima or Dimapur or Mokokchung, even if there are people from other villages, it's mostly like a city of villages. That warmth of the villages are there. For example, if you go to Dimapur,
Mm-hmm.
A village in Mokokchung is represented there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the population of the respective village in Dimapur may be more than the original parent village, and they keep their relations intact. They go and meet if somebody is in hospital or if there is some social function,
Mm-hmm.
so that community is intact. But I have seen occasions where this is getting diluted, and wherever this is happening, it is affecting the individuals, it is affecting the children, it is affecting the families.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something which we have to be very careful. And in the next 10 years, if we see, we can anticipate huge migration to
All
cities
right.
from the village areas.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Otherwise, especially when I'm speaking from my experience as somebody who is involved in law and order or
Mm-hmm.
crimes, it's rather very low, except some occasional flaring up of some situations. The
Mm-hmm.
general crime scenario, if we look at it, it's very peaceful place.
Well,
The
this.
traditional crimes are very, very less.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having such a very good observation about the Nagas in particular as you were here. Now, now let's come to the topic. We all know that the safety of children is very important, and be it the parents or anyone in the community, that is, it's very important. But somehow it also is very important, in particular for the police community or the police department or the police personnel. Why is it so, sir?
I would say basically three things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if we look at children, for example, if a child is lost and the parents are coming to police station,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't miss the fact that they have lost the most precious asset. If they have lost a car, if they have lost money,
Mm-hmm.
but if they have lost a child, this is the most precious asset.
Exactly, sir.
And this is not only for the family, but for the community, for the state, for everybody. The child is the most precious asset. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the secondly, if you look at the population composition, children constitute almost 40% of our population,
Mm-hmm.
and as they say, 100% of our future. They are our whole asset. But somehow in our discourses and our functioning, there is a strong possibility that this part we may tend to neglect,
Mm-hmm.
because till now children were the lookout of families and communities. But in a place like Dimapur, or not to that extent, but still in places like Kohima or Mokokchung town,
Mm-hmm.
police will have an increasing role to play when it comes to the safety of children, especially when they are going to new terrains like cyberspace
Mm-hmm.
or cities, or they are moving out of Nagaland.
Mm-hmm.
So the formal structures of the government has to be more careful regarding that. And of course, one more thing, they are a most vulnerable group. And of all the groups, a group which are not able to make associations or argue for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So as elders or more endowed people, it's our responsibility to take care of them. Unless we have that quality, there is something seriously wrong with our humanity. So
Mm-hmm.
we should be giving utmost priority to children. It's a natural thing.
Now, sir, I cannot help but take note of the point cyberspace, especially with the lockdown that we have experienced last year, and children coming into an area where they have to learn online. I feel they have been given a lot of liberty with the smartphones, for that matter.
Yes,
And these
exactly.
days, very sadly, even if you play the simplest mobile games,
Yes,
online, that is,
yes,
we tend to find a lot of advertisements from different firms and different apps, whereby
yes,
some of the advertisement also seems to be a little obscene when we
exactly.
look from the point of view of the safety of the children or their exposure to such kind of
Very much.
environments. So,
Yes.
sir, talking about this cyber crimes, or especially the cyberspace, not the cyber crimes, but the cyberspace. How vulnerable do you feel, and what are the steps that should be taken to promote the safety of the children, sir?
Yeah, when we look at the scenario when children are coming increasing to cyberspace, it has been there, but with the advent of this epidemic and children coming to the online classes, it
Mm-hmm.
must have gone 10 times at least.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening is even for adults, cyberspace is an extremely tricky thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have come across innumerable cases in Nagaland that it's very easy to cheat people. And the very architecture of the space is such that it is very difficult to ascertain whether the person on the other side is a genuine person or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm trying to say is this entity itself is a highly vulnerable thing. And now we are coupling that vulnerability to the vulnerability of children. Children are vulnerable even otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very explosive situation. Unless we handle that, serious danger is there. And what we have to do when we come to that, basically the three things. One, we should be able to configure the child to learn the netiquettes or to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
He should have the kind of socialization and the formation of the habits where he will have the innate defense mechanisms on. He should be able to detect, no, this is a fraudster
Mm-hmm.
at the earliest occasion. And the second thing is the device. The device safety is very important. There are applications which are available which we can install as adults, and we can monitor how the child is behaving online.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other safety measures also which you can put in the devices, which also will help the child. And thirdly, the networks that we are using. For example, I have seen so many schools distributing their material over WhatsApp groups.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually has invited so many very small children, children studying in class 3, class 4, to enter into WhatsApp groups, something which they are not able to handle.
Mm-hmm.
So unless there are some kind of clarity on the part of schools and the authorities as to how to distribute this material in a much more safer manner, all these things are going to create huge problems. And the issue of vulnerability is there, and other issues like behavioral problems are also a significant challenge. If the child is going to spend 6 hours, 7 hours on screen, it is going to create a lot of problem for the child.
Mm-hmm.
So what practically we can do is, school authorities, I have seen many of them starting lessons on cyber security to children over the online medium itself. Yeah, they will be able to. And this is something quite new. I think in the next 6 months or 1 year, we should be able to come up with better protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen one good thing about Dimapur, or even in fact, I have seen that people are rather good. They're techno savvy.
Mm-hmm.
They learn the things about mobile phones and other things rather quickly. So I hope that they will be able to handle this challenge, but they should identify this as a challenge.
Well, listeners, as just to recapitulate from what our Dr. ILYAS, IPS, has just said, parents in particular should find appropriate apps which you can install in your phones or your child's or your children's phone, whereby the safety is totally assured. So it shouldn't be a very big problem so long we have the platform, the right approach to the platform. There's always the Google Play Store whereby you can browse for all these kind of apps, and we can assure the safety of our children. Well, so now let's come to the vulnerability part. How vulnerable are children in the social arena, or how vulnerable are they mentally and physically as well, sir?
They are quite vulnerable. They are quite vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an African proverb which says it takes a village to raise a child. It requires inputs much beyond what is coming from school or parents or maybe siblings. They need to be shaped up by a much larger community. But very fortunately, this is something I found very heartening in Nagaland. Say 2-3 years into my life in Nagaland, I went to one of the fathers who were working in Dimapur, who were who came from Kerala. He has been there for the last 3 decades. So I was asking him, uh, what makes the children so articulate and so good in their manners in the Naga society? So he was telling me there is something very interesting. Unlike, say, you Keralites, they don't say so much of no to the children. They listen to children, they speak with children, and they know children that they will commit mistakes, and a child committing mistakes not a serious issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a wealth of personalities in the form of his parents, in the form of his uncles, in the form of his neighbors, his parents, cousins, who would shape him up. So the socialization of a child in Nagaland, especially in the olden days and in the village setting,
Mm-hmm.
is a fantastic thing. I think you also must have noticed whenever we go outside Nagaland, people make a note. They speak very well. They speak very coherently. And
Mm-hmm.
unless there is something really to tell, they will keep silent. There is no blah blah.
Now, sir, at the same time, they are also threats to the safety of the children. So,
Mm.
where do those kind of threats come in from, sir? Would you specify
We can say,
any? Yeah.
yes, definitely. There are vulnerability in terms of their physical nature.
Mm-hmm.
They will not have strength. If somebody is trying to abuse them sexually, the child will not be able to resist that. And secondly, mentally, there are issues of grooming. The child may be, it's a very plastic kind of a thing. Whatever you tell the child may just believe that. And people make use of that, and there are many instances people have done this kind of things. And socially also, yes, they have their groups, but it is not the like the groups that we have. So we have to understand these social, mental, and physical vulnerabilities in
Mm-hmm.
some detail, which we know. But the issue is that many a time we will not give much importance to these things, and we will think that it's okay. It has been like that. We have been, but things are changing. For example, a new family who is coming and settling in Dimapur,
Mm-hmm.
it's a massive change. Unless they are aware of these changes, unless they are aware of the fact that for the child, unless they take specific care, these resources are no more there. So you have to ensure that the community support is there. The kind of the tradition Nagas had will continue. Otherwise, just thinking that some modern ways of living is better for the child, it
Mm-hmm.
will create a lot of problems. And one specific thing I have seen in Dimapur is there are a lot many children who are coming from villages and staying with some other families.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say majority of the families, or a vast majority of the families, take care of the children very well. And there are a lot many children who have made use of such care and got good education and other facilities. But of course, we should understand that that is a huge shock for the child. It is removed from his family, it is removed from the village settings, and in at least in a few cases, things may not go so well also.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen complaints of child labor, some kind of an abuse. So these kind of things we have to keep watching. And the larger community is still very strong enough. Even in Dimapur, they make note of if somebody is an aberration, if somebody is treating the child badly, the community itself come to the fore and say that no, this is not done. We cannot do that.
Well, sir, as you are mentioning a little bit about a child labor as well, this is a very common scenario here in Nagaland, especially people coming from different parts of the state to urban centers such as the Dimapur or Kohima, for the matter of fact, even Mokokchung, or big towns whereby they come from the village areas. And child labor, as by definition, of course, we both know that it is a contradiction when we look at the reality, and when we try to look at the definition which has been placed by the government or by the institutions. So how do you think about this? What do you think about this precisely? Is it justified that this kind of practices should go on, or there are some better things that we can do for this kind of this for this kind of children?
See, I have seen people coming to police station and saying that
Hmm.
I had kept a child as a child laborer and he is missing now.
Exactly.
If the person himself come and say that I'm employing him as a child labor, there's
Hmm.
something seriously wrong. But there are people like we also have our own children. We will ask them to help us in some chores. That's fine. But if we think that they are doing a labor, they are being employed as a domestic assistant, then there is a problem. There is a serious problem because their tender age is for their growth. Anything which helps them in that growth, that's welcome. Anything which is creating a problem to that growth, that's a serious thing. That's a very, very serious thing.
So I suppose we should be looking more into the positive aspects by which their growth is supplemented, even though
Yes, yes.
unmindful of wherever they are staying, provided that we are just doing the right thing for them. Yeah.
Exactly. And if we look at the larger picture, if you look at the scenario in Dimapur, we should not miss the fact that there are vast majority of the families who are looking after kids from other families as their own. One or two aberration, we shouldn't think that that is the norm. That is not the norm. That is the aberration. The community and the society is still very good and they're taking care for the children. But wherever there are aberrations, we have to identify and we have to treat it separately.
Well, so now talking about this children in urban areas, uh, and if we have to think that there are a lot of students, children of student age, to be precise, going out of state
Yes.
of Nagaland for further studies or for pursuing the careers and whatnot. So, what according to you are what according to you are the problems that are being faced by these students who goes out of the state of Nagaland? In precise, do you have anything in mind?
I've come across many things like the inconveniences that are facing
Mm-hmm.
if they want to get a particular certificate, if they want to get a particular help, they will find it a little more difficult than they are in their own state, which is natural. And there can be instances of discrimination, there
Mm-hmm.
can be instances of outright violence. So unless we have mechanisms where if anybody is in trouble, they can contact us and we can deliver the help, we can go for serious difficulties. And if you look at the number of children who are studying outside Nagaland, especially after class 10,
Mm-hmm.
it's very huge, very, very huge.
Enormous, it
When I
is.
came as a probationer there, I was asking, where are the students?
Mm-hmm.
There are no students. If you look at the age group, say 15 to 20, they are just not there in Dimapur, except from very few families. Then
Mm-hmm.
I came to know that they are either in Pune or Shillong or Delhi or Chennai. They are all studying. And maybe I have seen Kerala has a department called NORCA,
All right.
non-resident Kerala. They take care of them exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that, given the massive number of students outside Nagaland, maybe by and by, if we can have that kind of a structure, it will be a ready help. We will have a phone number, we will have a helpline where the children from outside, if they have facing any difficulty, they can contact this officer and we can provide help. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
who is specifically designated for that, or maybe an office specifically designated for that. I
Mm-hmm.
think by and by that will come.
Hopeful that such kind of a mechanism really starts even here in our state, so that a proper care is being provided to those in need. Now, so
Yes.
we have also different entities or different departments, or for that matter, even different agencies which take care of children or child in need, such as,
Mm.
if we may put in the context, then we may talk about the child line or the child welfare committee, such. Now, how far has this mechanisms or these entities has been able to guarantee or safeguard a child's safety?
I would say they are doing a good job. Especially, I can say from my experience in FEC and Dimapur, in both places, they were working well.
Mm-hmm.
In Dimapur, Childline is also there. In fact, I have not, Childline was not there when I was there, but
All right.
maybe after that they have come. But when it comes to CWC or DCPO, they do function.
Mm-hmm.
And in Dimapur, Childline is very strong. They work very well. And the DCPO, the CWC, JJB, they're all working rather well. But I would say the availability of these institutions are, it looks like the public are not aware of these entities. Child Welfare Committee has to look after the welfare of all the children in need of care and protection.
Mm-hmm.
That is to say, any child who is found in the streets. Sometime in Dimapur, we see suddenly a child without any parents, he will be crying. So this child will be produced before the CWC, and the CWC will give the police the directions what you have to do with the child. And when it comes to JJB, any child in conflict with law will be dealt by the JJB.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in Dimapur, that is functioning, I would say, rather well. If we compare with other cities, its function is pretty good. But of course, they have their own constraints. For example, CWC, they do not have a proper office, and this is not all over India,
Mm-hmm.
because the funding structure is that they do not have sufficient funds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is not something which is specific to Dimapur or Nagaland. That is the way the CWC is functioning across the country now. These things we have to improve over time. I hope there are efforts underway. Because Child Welfare Committee is a very, very important entity. The public at large should be aware that there is such a committee and they have these powers. And if something goes wrong, it is this committee which will come into action.
Now, sir, you have just mentioned something about a child in conflict with the law. Would you
Yes.
mind elaborating a bit and making our listeners aware about such kind of thing, child in conflict with the law, sir?
Yeah, simply put, if we look at the objective of punishment,
Mm-hmm.
we do not know what exactly we are doing. If somebody has been involved in a murder,
Mm-hmm.
what is the objective of the system? You want to reform him? You want to go for retribution, that he has done something so he also has to be killed?
Mm-hmm.
Or we just want to keep that person away from the society so that the society is safe? So the objective of punishment, there's a little confusion there.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, whenever we arrest somebody, people will come to the police station and they will see that you have to beat him up, or if you are not able to do, we will do. That kind of a situation will come. But
Yeah, yeah.
maybe, I don't know, there are places where it is very clearly defined that the only objective of punishment is reformation. You treat everybody like your own child. The state treats everybody as your own child, and they want to reform to the extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the child in conflict with law, the law is extremely clear. It says the only objective is to reform the child. So if the child has been involved in a theft,
Mm-hmm.
your objective is not to give a retribution or some kind of punishment to him. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is he's a small boy, he's still an evolving soul, so we have to give him one more chance.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the objective with which the JJ Act is devised, and the Juvenile Justice Board is in place, and they take care of this aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's working reasonably well. Of course, structures like a children's home, it's not, maybe it has to come up in a better way.
Well, so since you have already been here in Nagaland, as we have already spoken, and taking into consideration about all the experiences that you have had, how would you rate the safety of a child or the juveniles getting involved in crime here in Nagaland, as in compared to the other states or the other parts of a country, sir?
I would say less, remarkably less.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Dimapur for 3 years, I've come across handful of cases only.
Mm-hmm.
Very less, I would say. But we have to be alert, especially if there is more drug usage or more alcohol abuse, which are not much, luckily, in Dimapur. It is there, but not to the extent in many other cities. So families and communities are able to assert. See, one very interesting thing about Nagaland is you cannot see a generation gap in Nagaland.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen generation gap in Kerala. I have seen generation gap wherever I go. The way the children and the youth thinking, and the way the elders are thinking are very different. And
Mm-hmm.
it will go for some kind of issues also. But in Nagaland, it is not there. which is a very strong indicator of the good connect between the two groups.
Mm-hmm.
The elders take care of the children very well, and the children do respect the elders even now. So that's a great thing. That's a remarkable thing, which will save from this kind of a situation. That will save from they going, what should I say, some kind of a sudden youth agitation or something which cannot be contained by anybody. That kind of a situation is not there in Nagaland, which is something which we have to note with a lot of satisfaction. And again, these are some of the points which is reflective of the strength of the Naga tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm saying it should not be spoiled in the migration waves that are coming to Dimapur. I don't know. I was thinking after 10 years, maybe 60-70% of the total population of Nagaland will be in Dimapur. I went to Mizoram the other day, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized that 70% of the population is already in Aizawl.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing is going to happen in Nagaland also. But luckily, if you look at the population dynamics in Dimapur, it is still a city of villages. Your village, it is there in Dimapur for all practical purposes. Anything comes, if there is a death, if there is a marriage, if there is a issue, everybody will come together, and they know each other, even if it is not geographic. I was calling it village annexe.
Mm-hmm.
So these village annexes are coming up. So we have to kind of encourage them. If that happens, Dimapur is not a city. Dimapur is a city of villages.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest bane of a city is its anonymity. If the anonymity is not there, especially for police, our job will be very, very easy. So I have a vested interest also there, but luckily it is going in that trajectory only.
Yeah, it's so nice to know about all these facts. In fact, there's some kind of a truth that we have not been able to realize by ourselves, but when somebody like you points it out very clearly, somebody outside of Nagaland points it out very clearly to us, I think it will serve as a food for thought for a lot of us. So thank you so much, sir, for those kind of inputs. Now, so as we talk about the cluster of tradition and the villages, as you say, that exist there in Dimapur, do you feel at times even the crimes that are supposed to be, brought up front to the law, to the constitutional law and dealt with, are rather suppressed by the traditional, practices or the traditional understandings or the customary laws, not customary laws, but rather the kind of close connectivity that we have with our fellow people. Do you feel
Yeah.
those kind of situations hinders the crime to be brought up front? Do you feel it also?
Mm, I was worried about that,
Uh-huh.
but if I speak from my experience, uh, it's the other way around. If you look at the constitutional scheme or the legal scheme that is there, Article 371A says very clearly, unless it is ratified by the state legislature,
Mm-hmm.
something which is against the traditions of Nagaland will not apply to Nagaland. Secondly, there is something called the rules for the administration of justice and police in Naga Hills.
Mm-hmm.
This is a British era piece of legislation, but still in vogue, which says the village authorities have the power to adjudicate these matters. And if you really look at how they do this, uh, to the extent I have seen, I would say it is more of a blessing than otherwise. Of course, there will be instances where it will be misused, but more often it helps. And if you look at the time that the justice delivery would take,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, this is something which should not look down upon. And there has been an effort for the Gram Nyayalaya Act, where the justice administration is to be decentralized. So this is already existing in Nagaland and working reasonably well. I'm not saying that this is a perfect system and it is not being misused,
Mm-hmm.
but it is being used to good effect also. And this is something which we have to treasure also. We should not think that this is something bad. per se. It is not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can see that if it is between two villages or between two tribes, this doesn't apply. Legally also, otherwise also it doesn't apply. Nobody can force that the rules or the ways of my adjudication should apply to you. And nobody has stated like that also. Then it comes to a conflict. It will come to a conflict, and it sometimes become a serious conflict where the modern structures of the state will have to step in, the police will have to step in, and police have stepped in also. And both parties usually agree to that, and they also want somebody from outside to intervene in that kind of a situation, because unless there is somebody to adjudicate, it will become an intractable problem. So between them, as long as see, we should understand one thing: the basic premise of law is that it counts everybody as one. Even if somebody is rich or if somebody is more endowed, he is still one only. He can't claim to be that he is 10 and the other person is one. I'm not speaking about law in Nagaland. This is the presumption about law in everywhere. But practically what happens, the rich has his own ways to maneuver things. But in Nagaland, even now it is difficult. The community is so strong that it is difficult to do that kind of a thing. So I would say, as long as the egalitarian principles and the egalitarian norms of the Naga society is intact, this is something we should check.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your opinion, yeah, even in that as well. So now we have discussed so much, and looking at the time constraints that we have, the time frame about our discussion, I'm very hopeful that we will also meet in the near future to discuss more about the safety of the child in both Nagaland as well as the whole world over, where we can bring out a little more uh, clarity, or look into the subject from different perspective the next time that we meet. So sir, as we come to wind up our talk, is there anything that you would like to appeal to the people to the people and the parents in particular for the safety of their child or the children?
I would say one thing. If you look at the Naga parents,
Mm-hmm.
of all the things they do, the most important thing for them is the education of their children. I have not seen a society which gives that level of a premium on education of their children like Nagas.
Thank
And at the end of the day, as long as they're educated, that is the biggest way you can safeguard them.
you. Mm-hmm.
So I hope and fervently wish that this trend continues. And one, I know this is reflective of their deep love and their knowledge what to do to help the children. This doesn't happen in all the societies. This is how a society develops. So a parent who is so keen to give his children good education, I'm sure, will be very keenly looking forward to give safety in all these issues that we discuss, including the safety of cyberspace.
Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Now, listeners, viewers, we have had a discussion with Dr. K.P.A. ILYAS, IPS, Assistant Director, National Police Academy, Hyderabad. Thank you for your time and for being a part of this program, Police and its Citizens Empowering in Unison, a program which is in collaboration with the All India Radio Mokokchung by the Mokokchung District Police. Thank you so much once again for your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.